Before we get started, I would appreciate if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. So why a 51% attack is highly unlikely with Bitcoin? And for a number of reasons, these are, in order to do a 51% attack, you have to have more mining power than the whole of the Bitcoin network combined. And this is extremely expensive. It'll be extremely expensive to have 51% of the mining power that you have control of. Not just for hardware costs, but also the amount of energy consumption that would be used. So you would have to have a lot of equipment in order to have more than 51% of the mining power. And remember, in the last lesson I showed you those mining farms. Even they don't have 51% of the mining power. So you're going to think about how much hardware you're going to need to have more than 51% of the mining power, and the amount of energy that you're going to have to consume. I mean, the whole operation itself is going to be a madness. So you're going to have a lot of equipment, and it's going to consume a lot of energy, and it's going to be extremely expensive. This is because Bitcoin is a well-established crypto with a large network of miners already and a lot of mining power already securing the network. So to try to take 51% of that for yourself is going to be more than a mountain to climb. It would cost the attacker billions of dollars just to attack the network for a short period of time. And these billions, in order to attack the network, is the investment that's going to be needed, for one, to buy the hardware costs, the computing power to have more than 51% of the overall network, and also the cost of the electricity that's going to be consumed in order to do such an attack. It's going to be in the hundreds of millions to billions, especially the longer the attack. So if you're trying to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin for a long period of time, let's say you're trying to do it for a few days, it can go into the billions. If you're trying to do it for a day, it could be into the hundreds of millions. It's going to be very, very expensive just to do an attack on the Bitcoin network for a short period of time. So the miners now have more incentive to use their resources honestly for the good of the Bitcoin network. And this is basically game theory, where it makes no sense for the miners to go against the rules of the network because they are incentivized to follow the rules of the network. And this is the game theory that we have in Bitcoin. For a miner to do a 51% attack, they're really going to have to sit down and think, is it even worth it? The amount of money that I'm going to put up in order to do this attack, in order to maintain this attack, whereas I could be using all that energy, all that power, all that money in the correct way, following the rules, and I would be incentivized. I would be rewarded. Whereas if I just try to do a 51% attack, how am I going to make that money back? Because eventually it would be detected on the network that there's a 51% attack, and things could take place within the Bitcoin blockchain community that basically throws that miner out. Because remember, it's a community of consensus, and if there's a rogue miner going against the rules, then things could happen that could ensure that that miner's equipment is no longer working on the protocol anymore to control the Bitcoin hash rate power. And if that happens by consensus, then what happens? The miner has just wasted billions for no reason, and they're left with nothing. So as a result of game theory, it's more beneficial for miners to follow the rules and be honest for the good of the Bitcoin network in order to earn Bitcoin and earn from the transaction fees, then to do a short-lived, costly attack to make a double spend transaction. And that's the only way a Bitcoin miner who is doing 51% attack can make money, is through a double spend transaction, because they are going to earn the Bitcoin mining rewards anyways if they were to be honest about mining Bitcoin without trying to attack the chain, if they have a lot of hash power. So if they have a lot of hash power and they're dedicating that hash power without trying to attack the chain, they're going to earn the Bitcoin mining rewards. Whereas if they're trying to be rogue and malicious and do a 51% attack, and they're trying to be bad and destroy the Bitcoin network, do a fraudulent transaction like a double spend transaction, that's the only real benefit that they can do, that they can gain financially, is doing a double spend transaction. And then you have to weigh up the benefits. Is a double spend transaction even worth it when you're going to be found out and you spent billions and then you're shut down from the rest of the Bitcoin community and the mining community. They sort of do things to basically make your hash rate power no longer effective. Is that even worth it anymore? Is that even worth it? Or should you use your resources for the good of the network in order to earn Bitcoin how you're supposed to? When you weigh up the options, it makes no sense, no rational, logical sense to do a 51% attack financially. Unless you really don't care about the expenses, and the reason why you're doing a 51% attack is to destroy the network, and your aim is to destroy the network by trying to disrupt the Bitcoin blockchain, prevent people from having their transactions confirmed on the Bitcoin network. So you're basically stalling and halting the Bitcoin blockchain. And if that's your main purpose of doing a 51% attack and you've got the money to waste, just say you've got the billions to just keep pouring into this and you just want to destroy the Bitcoin blockchain, then as I've said, things can be done within the Bitcoin community as a consensus where they may change the mining algorithm, for instance. So nobody loses coins. The mining algorithm is changed. All the miners and all the nodes get on board and they agree. And when that happens, that miner that is trying to destroy a Bitcoin blockchain, his computing power, all his hardware becomes useless and worthless because the Bitcoin blockchain has updated to a new protocol that all the miners and the chain is following instead, and that miner is just left with holding the bag of with nothing in it, and the Bitcoin network continues on as usual, and it's as if nothing has happened in the long run. In the long term, it's a short term, a little bit of instability, but in the long run, nothing has happened. The Bitcoin blockchain continues on as normal, and that miner has lost billions for trying to destroy the network when the network is just going to fork off and continue. So that's why a 51% attack is really unlikely. So attempting to attack the Bitcoin blockchain today for profit is simply difficult and not worth it, and is extremely expensive. However, if the motive is to just try to disrupt and destroy the network regardless of costs by preventing transactions from being confirmed, as I've already said, then the Bitcoin community by consensus agreement could respond by modifying the Bitcoin mining software and protocol, rendering the attacker's hardware instantly useless. And as a result, the Bitcoin network would continue and the attacker would have wasted billions for no reason. So the attacker would have spent a lot of money in vain just for the network to continue to go on as normal. So also it would be really hard for an attacker to do a double spend attack on Bitcoin without his identity being known, because the amount of Bitcoin that he would need to firstly own and then sell to make the attack even worth it would be practically impossible without any KYC being done. So in order for a 51% attacker to do a double spend on Bitcoin, firstly, he has to own Bitcoin. And he would have to, considering he's spending billions now, or hundreds of millions of dollars in order to do this 51% attack, he would, to make this double spend attack even worth it, he would have to have millions worth in Bitcoin. Because if you're doing this attack and you only have one Bitcoin, then it's not worth it, is it? You're spending millions just to do a double spend attack with one Bitcoin that's worth £8,000. Where is the brain sense in that if you're doing it for financial reasons? So you're going to have to at least have enough Bitcoin that when you do the double spend attack, it's worth your while. So now let's just say you're trying to do a double spend attack for one day and you're spending a few million to attack Bitcoin for one day. This is what you're trying to do. So you're spending several million to attack Bitcoin for one day. You're going to at least need to have more than several million worth of Bitcoins in order to do a double spend attack. Now, the problem that the attacker is going to have is that to do a double spend attack, you're going to have to try to sell your Bitcoin to make the attack even worth it. So you have these millions of Bitcoins. You want to quickly try to sell your Bitcoins, get the money for those Bitcoins, and then reverse that transaction so that you still have your Bitcoins in your wallet. And it's really impossible. One of the reasons why is because there's no way you can sell your Bitcoins in that amount without any KYC being done. Unless you're doing a private sale with an individual who has a suitcase full of money and and even then the person would know who you are. I mean, if you're trying to sell your Bitcoins on an exchange, that amount, you're going to have to do KYC, and KYCs would know your customer. So they would have your identity, they would have your proof of address, they would know who you are, and they would know you're the one who did double spend attack on them. And unless you're doing a private sale, who is going to spend that much money buying Bitcoins in the millions without knowing who they're buying the Bitcoins from? I mean, it's just going to be really impossible not to have your identity known. That's what I'm trying to say. So it is just extremely unlikely and risky for any rational miner to attempt to waste so much money and resources on attacking the Bitcoin blockchain rather than just earning Bitcoin by playing by the rules. So that's the honest truth. It makes no sense, no logical, no rational sense to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin when you get more rewards by just following the rules and earning Bitcoin the way you should, than wasting your resources trying to attack the chain and do a double spend attack, which very likely is going to fail for quite a few reasons. And one of the reasons is your identity would be known. And there's things that exchanges can do as well, which we're going to talk about, that can even protect them from a 51% attack. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so as to not miss my next video. Take care and goodbye.